But welcome to Better Than Fiction with Andrew and Jeanette this month. Eden is out, and so the next couple of months, Andrew will be joining me as we talk about our TBR list. Do you, Andrew, have a large TBR list the way Eden and I do?
Yeah, I have about 5 or 6.
TBR lists, separate lists, or piles, or just 5 books? Because that's not really a big list.
Probably maybe 3 or 4 sets of 5 or 6 books.
Fair enough, because I believe I did visit a few bookstores with you, and there was some buying of piles of material.
Yes, there was.
So, we are looking at our list that we did. I will have to say my number book, Ink, Blood, Sister, Scribe, was my second DNF this fall. And considering it's only been a few months, that's kind of fallish, maybe. That's not so hot for me. I know this got a lot of hype on Book Talk and some of the early reviewers. It just wasn't for me. It was a debut novel. It was billed as fantasy, but it was one of those books you only maybe touched your toe into fantasy. I was so excited, the premise. Who doesn't want magic books, secret libraries, and family intrigue? It just sounded fantastic. Not so much for me. It felt very YA novel-like, but it was obviously written for adults, and that just doesn't work for me. It will be in the library within the next couple of days if you're interested. You know, I think it would be a great book for those who just want to try fantasy but don't really want to take that full dive into full fantasy. I think this would be a great book for someone who isn't sure about fantasy.
Does that stand on its own, or is it a series?
It stands on its own at this point as a debut novel. It doesn't say that another one's coming. So, it's here. I did also read my dual timeline book, which was the secret book of Flora Lee, and it looked at family drama, women's history, and dual timeline. So it was really good. It was a sweet book. It was really relaxing to read. So I was really happy with that. I finished that in no time. It was right up my alley. So I've been reading some Halloween books. Daniel Kuhlman, which is a German writer, picked up one of his very short novels when we were out and about at a bookstore. Weird, twisty, fantastic, psychological, kind of ghosty story that made you read the ending a couple of times to make sure you fully got it. Was a fantastic book. But this has been a slower reading month for me because I'm just getting lots of other stuff done. So Andrew, what about you? What do you read? Tell our folks out there what you like to read.
I just got done with this book, Tender is the Flesh. This was my October read. It's by, I'm sure I'm gonna butcher this name, no pun intended, Augustina Bazterrica.
She's Argentinian,
Yep.
correct?
Yep. Yes, it's basically about a world where human cannibalism is legalized, and a very robust and successful industry. So it's pretty dark, and I think the times that we live in, it's probably not as dark as, say, if it came out some years back. Although, that's just kind of a subjective viewpoint. It's very well written. It kind of is, it's told from the perspective, more so from the perspective of the main character who works in a slaughterhouse. He's kind of the management department, and then he eventually he's getting over the divorce from his wife, death of his son, and just kind of feeling very even more out of sorts than he is, and that everyone else is, just from living in a world of cannibalism. It's very apathetic. but very sort of in a way that kind of captures that apathy. It's not apathetic in its writing, and it very well translates a world that kind of would veer in that direction, which hopefully we don't. But it's very economic. It gets to the point. It doesn't romanticize. And yeah, I thought it was a very, very good, awesome book.
I will say that I listened to this book in audio last year, I think, or early this year or late last year. It's very impactful listening to that in audio.
Yeah, I think
I went, what just happened? Where are we? Because it got a lot of attention when, I think last year with the awards, it was being talked about, and that's why I picked it up. I was excited to listen to it in audio, and you just kind of sit there, you stop what you're doing, and you listen to that horror.
Yeah.
When you're listening to it, it just makes it, I don't know, more real. The reader's very good. Be prepared.
Yeah.
Fantastic writing. Absolutely fantastic writing.
Yeah.
The reader is also good if you choose to listen to it in audio. Perfect October read. It is not your Christmas read, maybe.
It'll slither into your ears if you listen to it on audio. I was thinking about reading it for Thanksgiving, but yeah.
You don't know what you're carrying.
It's very, I think, accurate about a lot of people in a very unremarkable, actual way.
Where the cannibalism is side note to the characters, because the characters are just real people.
Yeah.
And you when you go to a job, I mean, this is what it looks like. And where we're kind of looking at it as a horror, it's interesting the way the writer is able to make it humdrum in that aspect. Even though you're kind of going, what just happened?
Yeah.
Yes, that did just happen.
I don't think you wouldn't be able to write something like this unless you've actually been through something that would be able to get that out of you and to connect with that. It's astonishingly written in that way. And it's also really interesting the characters, how they kind of it's very much kind of complex in the way that a habit kind of slips in there, and then like they can be like this totally like caring person, and then they'll have this way about them that is just so like inhumane or just very tethered to the structure of where society is at.
Exactly, and it really looks at what we were able to put in the back of our mind or put it in a closet in order to keep doing something.
Yeah.
And we all do that, and it is a blunt force look at how we as humans can do something and just kind of make it okay, or just not think about it enough because we just put it in this little spot in our brain. And that's what I felt listening to that. It's interesting because when you listen, you do get different than when you actually are reading the words and with the way you go back or redo something. So it was really interesting having this conversation because I listened to it while Andrew read it. And we got some, most of the same things out of it. I feel it was actually a little more horrifying listening to it.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Listening to it. And we had listened, we both had listened to a book called Pink Slime.
Yeah.
And again, I think reading it would have equally been horrifying. We have destroyed, it's dystopia, just world destruction kind of thing, due to algae in the water, so nothing's really safe. So big companies made this pink slime, or that's what the street term is for this meat-like substance that keeps people alive. It's your food source. It was more, I think, even more horrifying listening to it because you're able to visualize so clearly with the reader. Versus reading it. I think some of the horror, is in the right pauses at the right time.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think some of the, quote, horror books or dystopia books that I have read recently, I'm glad I listened to them in audio, actually, because it was more horrifying.
Yeah.
And I actually went back and listened to the ending of that book again.
Oh, yeah.
to make sure I fully got that impression of that particular book.
Yeah.
Because it was not pretty either.
I don't know if you remember the ending to this one, but I think they're kind of
Similar.
along the same lines. Yeah, it's just like it really hits you.
It hits you and then drops off.
Yeah.
Where then it leaves you here going, ugh. And
Totally unhappy.
totally unhappy. No hope. So if you are already in a dark spot, those books are not for you. We do not have Pink Slime in the library. It is available on streaming, our ebook resources.
Or it could be for you.
Or it could be for you, absolutely.
If that's how you
maybe your Thanksgiving read,
There we go.
or maybe not a January read, or maybe it is. So, anything else that you've been reading?
The one that I am doing a review for on our Facebook, Apocalypse Taco. That one is a juvenile graphic novel. It's a really cool imagery and plays with like bioengineering and cloning and bees, and it's a really cool, fascinating book. So yeah, that one's really cool. I'm reading a couple of nonfiction books right now. I have the Master Social History of Artificial Intelligence, which I think is kind of a vital read and should be taught in school.
And we just purchased it. It just hit our catalog.
Yeah.
I will have to say, I have it on my desk to check out because he has given it such high reviews. But we've been working really hard on researching some AI for here at the library and being able to help folks through that and with his review. So while I'm checking it out currently, it will be on our shelf in a couple of weeks when I return that.
And then Marina Garcia's. Oh man, I think I might have messed up that last name, but The New Enlightenment. That's also a really cool book, kind of a philosophy, social, topical book. And yeah, so
You've been reading pretty heavy this month.
Yeah. I take.
You're gonna stay in the dark zone.
Yeah.
Because none of that's overly happy.
Why not? And I just watched some Friday the 13th movies too. So.
Well, I am cataloging the Happy-Go-Lucky Christmas books. You may want to take a look at that to draw you back out. So we're down to, let's draw one of our two numbers. We are down to 2 or 4. To finish off our list for TBR, would you like to do the honors and draw our number out?
Sure.
See where we are. We're going to be reading number 4 off your TBR list. I am going to be reading a book called Again and Again. I know it's on my shelf and it sounds fantastic. And I think it has to do with repeating and time warping and that kind of thing. So I'm excited to read that. Andrew, do you know what you might be reading off your TBR list?
I just checked out what was that one you gave me yesterday? The art and...
It's called Sex Workers.
Yes.
And it is looking at the fine line between sexuality and art. And fantastic memoir.
Awesome.
I highly recommend it. If you have sensibilities where you're not into some, more graphic reading, it wouldn't be for you. But it is a really great look at society and what we make okay and what we make not okay. It just was a really good book. And it's really short by looking at it, but to me it was not a fast read because it was so good that you really wanted to think about what they're writing and think about your own feelings and context of the book. So I hope you enjoy it. All right, our book prompt for this month. All right, and what are we reading? Cool. Perfect. I'm just getting ready. I think I've only started, I don't think 2 pages counts, but a nonfiction book looking at a historical moment.
Like that kamikaze?
I am starting a book called The Blossoms in the Wind, which is taking a look at kamikaze and their families and some long-term effects of the idea of what a kamikaze and how it came about. So I'll be picking that up. What will you be picking up, Andrew?
For this one? Nonfiction book looking at a historical moment. That's a good question.
Well, something to think about. We'll be
Yeah.
excited to see what you have. So enjoy the rest of your week. I hear we're going to have warm weather, cold weather, and then I have a feeling winter will be arriving. We have great new books on the shelf. You won't want to miss them. So happy reading.
Have a good